let's get right into it.
You know that feeling like there's something hidden just below the surface of your mind, kind of shaping how you react, what you expect, even how you feel about yourself. It's incredibly fast, powerful. Sometimes it feels like a superpower, really.
Yeah.
And other times, well, maybe a little like it's pulling the strings.
Yeah, absolutely. That feeling's real.
Well, that hidden force, that's what we're diving into today.
Huh.
Associations, those automatic links our minds just make. Bread
The
and
butter.
hot stove and...
Oh, ouch. Don't touch.
Right. Or just seeing a certain look on someone's face. It instantly connects. Our brains are constantly wiring things together, often way, way below conscious thought.
Nonstop.
So for this deep dive, we've got a really fascinating stack of sources. We're looking at Daniel Kahneman's work on how our brains work fast.
System 1 thinking, yeah.
Then diving deep into language and how it creates these mental traps with Stephen C. Hayes and relational frame theory.
RFT, yes.
Yes.
Crucial stuff. In Gabor Mate on trauma and addiction, plus some philosophy, and even how these inner workings can be, well, used by others.
Yeah, how they can be leveraged. It's quite the mix.
So the big question we're tackling is, how do these connections actually work in our minds? Are they mostly helpful, guiding us? Or can they become these sneaky saboteurs trapping us?
Allies or enemies, basically.
Kind of. And the sources offer this really cool metaphor. Think of associations like the superhero Venom.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, capable of incredible speed, adaptation, power, helping you navigate, learn, connect. Amazing stuff. But just like Venom, if that power isn't understood or, worked with skillfully...
It can take over.
Exactly. It can become destructive, feel like something you're fighting against. So our mission today is to really understand this duality. How do we relate to this incredible, sometimes really challenging inner power?
It's fundamental, really. When we talk about that fast-thinking Kahneman System 1, we're basically talking about an associative engine.
Associative engine, I like that.
Yeah, it's speed, it's intuition, its ability to handle so much information instantly.
Right.
That comes precisely from making these lightning-fast connections.
So it's just constantly linking everything up?
Pretty much. Think about those simple examples you mentioned, bread and butter. Or you see a specific face and bam, a feeling arises: disgust, maybe warmth.
Right.
Even reading the word vomit activates a whole network, sensations, images, maybe past experiences, even if it's just on a page.
Okay.
It's not random. It's because your brain has built these incredibly complex associative memory networks, wiring ideas, feelings, memories, actions, all together. It's how priming works, Activate one concept, and related ones light up automatically.
So it's like this huge interconnected web inside our heads, constantly being built and reinforced.
That's a great way to put it. And System 1 is always trying to make sense of things by connecting these dots, finding patterns. Sometimes it even creates causal links where maybe there aren't any, just to make a coherent story quickly.
Ah, okay. Like the halo effect. If someone seems nice in one way, you assume they're nice in others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your associative engine fills in the blanks to make a smooth picture.
Yeah.
Fast, efficient, but, like you said, not always accurate.
Okay, so this automatic linking helps us make quick sense of the world. What's the major upside? Why is this associative engine so crucial, so powerful?
Oh, the benefits are immense. The sources really lay this out. First off, speed and efficiency. Massive.
Like in a crisis.
Absolutely. Rapid decision-making, reacting instantly, that's your associative engine firing on all cylinders. Pure survival sometimes.
Right, fight or flight is basically pure association.
Totally. And it allows for automaticity. Think driving, reading, playing music. Things that were once super effortful become fast, automatic. They barely use any mental energy because those associations are so deeply grooved.
Frees up brain space for harder stuff.
Exactly. It frees up our slower, more deliberate System 2 thinking for the complex problems. So it makes us capable and really energy efficient.
Makes sense. What else?
It's the bedrock of learning and memory. Associative learning is how we figure out hot stove bad, press button equal treat. Memories themselves, they're stored in these networks. Recalling one bit can trigger a whole cascade.
Like memory palaces, using weird associations to remember things.
Precisely. You're intentionally building strong associations, and they help us navigate the world, make predictions. We recognize patterns. Doorbell means visitor. Dark clouds might mean rain. We form expectations based on these links, and they're absolutely fundamental for social connection. Language only works because we share associations for words. We navigate social situations using learned scripts, associating cues with certain behaviors.
Knowing what to do at a party versus a funeral, sort of?
Right.
Yeah.
And reading emotions on someone's face. or in their voice.
Mm.
That relies heavily on associating those expressions with internal feelings. That's key for empathy.
Wow. Okay, so they're responsible for pretty much everything that lets us function smoothly. Dodging danger, connecting with people, learning skills. That's definitely the superhero side of this inner Venom. Adaptive, powerful.
Exactly. An engine of incredible capability.
But the Venom metaphor implies a dark side too. You mentioned it can lead us astray. Where does this powerful process start to get tricky, maybe even harmful?
Okay, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit counterintuitive. Stephen Hayes' work, especially relational frame theory, RFT, it points out that for humans, it's not just simple Pavlovian associations, like a dog and a bell.
Right.
Our language ability adds this whole other layer. We form what's called derived relational responding.
Derived. What's that mean in, like, normal
It
terms?
means our minds can automatically create links between things based on rules or relationships we learn, even if we've never directly experienced those things together.
Huh.
Okay, simple example. If I tell you A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, your mind just knows, automatically derives that A is bigger than C.
Right. Without needing to see A and C together.
Exactly. And you also know C is smaller than A, and so on. You didn't need to be taught each specific comparison. Your mind derived it based on the rule bigger than.
Okay, so our language ability acts like a logic engine, creating new connections based on rules.
Precisely. And it doesn't just do this with size. It does it with everything, abstract ideas, emotions, thoughts about ourselves. So if you learn to associate, say, panic with weakness, maybe through cultural messages or something,
Okay.
and then you also associate weakness with, I don't know, being less than others, your mind automatically derives a link between panic and being less than others, even if no one ever said that directly to you.
Whoa.
Yeah. And this creates these vast, complex, and often incredibly rigid networks of derived associations in our minds, based purely on language rules, not necessarily direct experience.
Mm.
And according to RFT, this is where a huge chunk of human suffering originates. It's not just the direct pain of, say, rejection. It's the network of meanings our language builds around it. Thinking you're broken because you feel sad, believing you're unlovable because of a past hurt. These are complex, derived associations, and they can feel incredibly real and sticky.
Wow. So our internal chatter isn't just describing reality, it's actively creating a reality, a web of meaning that can seriously trap us.
And that leads right into what Hayes calls cognitive fusion.
Phew.
Yeah, it's when we get totally entangled with these derived associations, we take them absolutely literally as gospel truth.
So the thought, I am a failure, becomes fused with the belief, I actually am a failure.
Exactly. The thought isn't just a thought anymore. It is reality. And when that happens, these language-based associations, these thoughts, they start acting like little dictators inside our heads, rigidly controlling how we behave.
The dictator within. Yeah, I remember that from the source material.
That's the one. And what's the natural response when you have thoughts or feelings that you've associated with pain or danger or shame?
You try to get away from them, push them down, avoid them.
Bingo. That's experiential avoidance. We try desperately to control, suppress, or just get rid of unwanted internal stuff, thoughts, feelings, sensations. If anxiety has become associated with bad or dangerous in your network, your instinct is to push it away or run from situations that might trigger it.
So it's like the fight or flight response gets turned inwards against our own minds.
In a way, yeah. And this avoidance is a huge driver of problems like addiction. Both Hayes and Gabor Mate talk a lot about this.
How so?
Well, addiction often starts as an attempt to self-medicate deep pain, right? Often pain rooted in trauma or difficult early experiences. The substance, or maybe the behavior, gets powerfully associated with temporary relief from that awful internal feeling.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then over time, craving becomes this conditioned response. It's triggered not just by the substance itself, but by cues associated with relief, or even just the feeling of the internal pain it used to numb. Mate's realm of hungry ghosts metaphor is so powerful here.
Yeah, that really sticks.
It captures that desperate attempt to fill an internal emptiness or quiet the pain by associating external things, substances, shopping, work, whatever, with a cure that never truly lasts.
Yeah.
Driven by these often really maladaptive associations.
So we get caught chasing external fixes or trying to numb internal states because they've become linked, associated with either satisfying some need or avoiding some pain. And the sources mention this can twist our basic human yearnings too.
Absolutely. That Psychology Today piece connects perfectly. Our fundamental human drives for belonging, for knowing where we stand, to feel alive, for things to make sense, for meaning, they can get totally hijacked and misdirected by these associative traps and the avoidance they fuel.
Okay, how does that work? Like with belonging?
Well, we all yearn for connection, right?
Yeah.
But if your past experiences or maybe just fused thoughts have associated being authentic, being vulnerable with pain or rejection,
Then you hide your real self.
exactly. You might chase belonging through pretense, performing, wearing what Hayes calls a social clown suit. You associate getting external approval with safety or connection. But true belonging, being seen as you are, that requires dropping the act, which feels dangerous because of those associations.
Instead of being seen, you try to be liked by being someone else. Wow.
Yeah, it's a painful twist. Or the yearning for orientation. We want to understand things, feel grounded. But if fused thoughts associate safety only with control or perfect prediction.
You get stuck in worry, trying to figure everything out.
Right. Constantly scanning the past for mistakes or the future for threats, trapped in anxiety, instead of finding orientation in just being aware, here and now, noticing what is.
And the yearning to feel.
We're wired to feel, but many of us learn through association that intense emotions, even joy sometimes, are overwhelming or dangerous. So we try to avoid feeling. We numb out, we associate numbness with safety, but then we miss out on the richness, the vitality, the wisdom that comes from embracing our full emotional range.
Like cutting yourself off from life to avoid the bad bits, but losing the good, too.
Exactly. And coherence, wanting things to make sense. Our language-driven minds love neat narratives. But life is messy. If we rigidly associate contradictions or complexity with being wrong or a problem, we get stuck trying to force life into neat boxes, following rigid mental rules instead of seeing what actually works in the real messy world.
Okay. And meaning.
Meaning. So often, through culture or upbringing, we associate meaning with external things, wealth, status, achievements. We chase them because they've been linked so strongly in our minds with worth or fulfillment.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Sort of, yeah. But true, deep, lasting meaning, that's usually cultivated from the inside out, by aligning our actions with what we genuinely value regardless of the external rewards.
This is powerful. It really sounds like our deepest needs can get tangled up by these automatic, often unhelpful associations. And because it's all happening so fast, so automatically back to system one, can that speed be used against us? By others?
Unfortunately, yes. The sources on manipulation are pretty clear. The automatic associative nature of System 1 makes us vulnerable.
How?
Well, think about advertising or political messaging. Techniques like relentless repetition, triggering strong emotional associations, fear, desire, anger, or using priming. They're often intentionally designed to bypass our slower, more critical System 2 thinking.
They hook directly into those fast automatic links.
Exactly. They exploit the fact that System 1 prioritizes speed, coherence, and emotional resonance over logical accuracy. If someone can create a strong enough association in your mind between, say, their product and happiness, or a political opponent and a negative stereotype,
That automatic link can sway you, even if you'd rationally disagree.
it absolutely can influence your feelings, your judgment, your behavior, often without you even realizing it fully.
It's unsettling.
Okay. Definitely unsettling. So we've got this incredibly powerful inner force, this venom, that helps us learn and navigate, but can also trap us in pain, twist our desires, make us vulnerable. How do we shift this? How do we harness the superhero side instead of being controlled by the villain? How do we work with this thing?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is where approaches like acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, offer a really practical, hopeful path.
Okay, ACT.
The core idea isn't about getting rid of the difficult thoughts or feelings that pop up from these associations. You can't really just delete them. The goal is to change your relationship with them.
Change my relationship with my own thoughts and feelings. How does that even work?
It involves learning specific skills, specific processes. One big one is acceptance.
Acceptance, like just giving up.
No, not at all. It's not resignation. It's more like willingness. Instead of constantly fighting or trying to escape difficult internal experiences, the anxiety, the self-criticism, the urge to use, you learn to make space for them, to allow them to be there without letting them dictate your actions.
Okay. So not fighting the wave, but learning to surf it, maybe.
That's a common metaphor, yeah. It's about acknowledging the feeling as present, maybe noticing where you feel it in your body without immediately obeying the impulse it brings, like running away or lashing out. You change the association from discomfort emergency must stop to discomfort, okay, this is here right now, what do I want to do?
Right. And what else?
Then there's diffusion. This tackles that cognitive fusion we talked about, getting stuck believing your thoughts are literal truth.
Getting unstuck from the thoughts.
Exactly. Diffusion techniques help you see thoughts as thoughts. Just words, pictures, sounds passing through your mind, not orders from headquarters, not objective reality.
So the thought, I'm going to fail this presentation, isn't a prediction. It's just a thought.
Precisely. It's your brain doing its associative thing, maybe linking past experiences or fears. Diffusion helps you step back and just notice. There's the I'm gonna fail thought again. You might thank your mind for trying to protect you. Maybe give the thought a funny voice, or picture it written on a leaf floating down a stream.
Okay. Singing my anxious thoughts.
Hey, whatever works. The goal isn't to change the thought's content, but to lessen its power, its function, to weaken its grip on your behavior. You see it, you acknowledge it, and then you can choose whether or not to act based on it. Does this thought help me move towards what matters? If not, maybe I don't need to follow its instructions.
Okay. Acceptance, diffusion. What else?
There's connecting with yourself as context. This is a bit more subtle, maybe. It's about noticing that there's a part of you that observes all your thoughts, feelings, sensations.
The watcher.
Kind of, yeah. The observing self. Thoughts change, feelings change, your body changes. But there's a consistent sense of you that's aware of all that changing content. Connecting with this perspective helps you unhook from identifying with your thoughts and feelings. You're not just your anxiety or your shame. You are the space in which anxiety and shame can occur.
So it changes the core association. Instead of I am my suffering, it's I am the one noticing the suffering.
Beautifully put, yes. It creates psychological distance and a more stable sense of self that isn't defined by the fleeting contents of your mind.
It sounds like getting some distance, treating the thoughts less like commands and more like suggestions or just mental noise.
Exactly. Suggestions, mental events, maybe even just habits of the mind. And this is key. You can't just subtract the old associations. Remember RFT. Try not to think of something, just links it more strongly.
Right, the pink elephants.
Exactly. So ACT isn't about erasing the bad stuff. It's about building new, more helpful associations and changing the function of the old ones, primarily through action.
Action, how does that fit in?
This is where values and committed action come in. You get clear on what truly matters to you. What kind of person do you want to be? What qualities do you want to bring to your life? Those are your values.
Okay, like kindness or courage or connection.
Yeah, things like that. Then you commit to taking actions, big or small, that move you in the direction of those values. And here's the crucial part. You do this even when those difficult thoughts, feelings, and associations show up.
So you don't wait for the anxiety to go away before you say, make that phone call you value.
Precisely. You learn to take the anxiety with you. You act in the presence of discomfort, guided by your values. And every time you do that, you're building new, powerful associations.
What kind of new associations?
Well, anxiety might stop being solely associated with danger. Stop and start getting associated with this feeling shows up when I'm doing something important, or this means I'm stretching myself. It becomes a signal, maybe even a companion, rather than a dictator. The action itself becomes associated with living meaningfully, not just with escaping discomfort.
So you're consciously building new pathways in the brain, new connections.
You got it. You're strengthening links between valued action and a richer life, even with the hard stuff present. Think of Viktor Frankl finding meaning in suffering, associating it with chosen attitude. Or the Stoics deliberately reassociating well-being only with their inner responses, weakening the power of external events. It's about building psychological muscle. And practices like mindfulness are super helpful here. They train that observing capacity, that ability to notice thoughts and feelings without automatically getting fused or reacting based on old habits. They create that crucial pause.
That space between stimulus and response where you can choose.
Exactly, where conscious choice becomes possible.
Okay, so this gives us tools to work with our internal venom. What about protecting ourselves from the external stuff, the manipulation attempts that leverage our associations?
Right. That requires building what one source calls media literacy, or maybe cognitive literacy, since manipulation often targets System 1's speed and automaticity.
You gotta engage System 2, slow down.
That's the first step. Pause. Don't just bite on the emotional hook or the catchy phrase. Question that gut reaction. Actively look for different angles, counter evidence.
Be skeptical.
Healthfully skeptical, yeah. Cultivate critical thinking. Verify sources. Fact check. Understand common tricks, logical fallacies, things designed to create misleading associations, and enhance your own emotional regulation and self-awareness. Know your own triggers, your hot buttons, those areas where you have strong, maybe easily exploited associations. Mindfulness helps you notice when they're being pushed, so you can choose a more deliberate response instead of just reacting automatically.
And maybe don't get all your news from one place.
Definitely diversify your sources. Avoid those echo chambers that just keep reinforcing the same narrow set of associations over and over.
So all these strategies, they basically boil down to increasing our psychological flexibility.
That's the term ACT uses, yeah. Psychological flexibility. It's about being open to your whole experience, aware of what's happening inside you and around you, and actively engaged in doing what matters to you, not being rigidly controlled by thoughts, feelings, or old rules. Focusing on workability.
Workability.
Yeah. What actually works to move your life in a direction you value, based on your actual experience, not just what your mind dictates or what feels comfortable in the short term, and maybe reframing the whole experience, seeing difficult associations, painful memories, the suffering they bring, maybe not as just an enemy to be destroyed, but as, well, as part of being human, and potentially as an opportunity to understand the system inside you and maybe even change how it functions. It's a deeply shared human journey.
So wrapping this deep dive up, we've seen how associations are this incredible, powerful force, like that inner venom. They're the engine of our quick thinking, making us efficient, helping us learn, connect, navigate the world. Huge benefits.
The superhero side.
But if we're not aware, they can fuse with our thoughts, lock us into avoiding difficult feelings, twist our deepest desires, leave us feeling stuck, trapped, even vulnerable to being manipulated.
The dark side is real, yeah.
Yeah.
But understanding this power, that gives you choice. You don't have to be controlled by rigid, old, unhelpful associative patterns. You can actually learn to notice them, make space for them without being consumed.
By practicing things like acceptance, diffusion, getting unstuck from thoughts, connecting with that deeper awareness, that observing self, and crucially, by taking action towards what you truly value, you change your relationship with those associations.
Exactly. You start building a life that's driven by purpose and meaning, not just by reacting to the automatic, often outdated dictates of your mind's history.
It's about cultivating that psychological flexibility, being open, aware, and engaged, even when things are tough.
It really is. It's a continuous process, a journey of learning how to be more fully human with all the complexity and challenge that comes with having this amazing, sometimes overwhelming associative engine inside us.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If you're suffering, which so often comes from these tangled associative webs we've been talking about, isn't just a problem to be eliminated, but could actually be seen as a signal, maybe even a catalyst for growth, for conscious, valued action, what might that possibility open up for how you choose to respond the next time those difficult associations show up in your own mind?